Alrighty, so I'm making this video to go over my 2025 Clackacraft Magnum Power Drifter. When I was in the market for this boat, I watched every video I could on YouTube to try and get a good idea of what I was getting into and the pros and the cons and what I wanted to do from the factory, what I wanted to do aftermarket. So I've had this boat for about 5 months and I've put quite a few hours on it, so I think I know just about every quirk that it has and everything that I wanted to improve upon. So yeah, that's the intention of this video, is to just go over the things that needed to be addressed, and hopefully some of these things can be corrected at the dealer for the future builds that Clackacraft does. And I hope they don't take it personally when I shed some light on some of the things that needed to be addressed. So I'll just talk about some of the things I like about this boat. So the overall experience of getting it, they were very responsive up at Clackamas. The guys over at Clackacraft are very personable. They're very customer service oriented, and yeah, they bounced some ideas off of me. Like when I wanted these lights added, they kind of they told me what was a good idea, and I provided the lights and they made it happen. So you know, they're a custom boat builder and they're good with stuff like that. The trailer, I really like the trailer. Whoever's making these and doing the galvanization there is doing really good work. The electrical work with the graph, with the switches there, with the Ultera, the connections are all really nice. They're all soldered and shrink tubed. The power to weight ratio of the boat, this 60/40 Tohatsu is a pretty good little powerhouse for this boat. It's not quite a 30-mile-an-hour boat. You can go 30 if you're going downstream and you're by yourself, but yeah, it's not that quick to get you into a whole lot of trouble, but it's fast enough to get you places. The layout, the overall layout. I took the casting brace out, and we'll talk about that later, but it's pretty spacious. I like the open floor plan. I like that between the side tray and the seat here, there's a spot for the net. It's pretty nice. And yeah, the overall quality is pretty robust. There's just a couple things that needed to be addressed, and we'll talk about it here. The boat buckles are also really nice. Whoever started to do that, good job on that. So we'll start with the anchor. The anchor is a really good example of the improvement that needs to be done on the small things, right? The attention to detail. So what was originally in place, this part of the anchor was a piece of C-channel aluminum that slid in and out. And this plug weld right here was a threaded hole, and you would tighten a bolt and it would apply tension to this piece and it would keep it stable. Well, that lasts for maybe 2 minutes, whether it be on the water or on the road. It always comes loose, and it wasn't a strong design. So I had a fabricator, my cousin. He cut this portion off, welded a piece of square stock, and it goes to right around there. We ran a bead all the way around it. I welded the cleat. I filled that threaded hole, and then I also welded a piece right here to support a little bit of load on this part of the boat. And it's much stronger now. I run into a lot of other power drifters in my area, and just about every one of their anchors are always rattling around, and yeah, it's not ideal. If you want to ride around with your anchor cleated, number one, it has to be cleated at the very top of this knot. You cannot do a loop. It has to be cleated at the top of the knot, so the knot stops right here. Otherwise, it will hit your boat. And there's proof. So when you do that, there's a ton of force acting on this whole anchor system. So it needed to be fabricated significantly in order to support all that load. The second thing, not with the whole anchor system, but with how it attaches to the boat, was a really bad design. How it was originally, and you can see I've since put hex bolts, but this is how it came from the dealer. It was 2 carriage bolts, which, by the way, carriage bolts need a square, like, broached hole in order to be even torqued down. It was 2 carriage bolts on top and bottom, and they just went through bare fiberglass, okay? So all of the weight was supported on 2 carriage bolts, and these bare threads would act as like a file, and all that vibration and movement would kind of file away some of the fiberglass. So what I did, I drilled out these holes, I epoxied in some stainless steel sleeves, and then I switched them for hex bolts with a washer and a locking nut. So not only is the anchor significantly stronger now, but how it attaches is significantly stronger. With hex bolts that aren't threaded, the thread starts like right here where my thumb is. So the outer diameter of a hex bolt is actually larger than a carriage bolt, so it's more material, it's stronger. And instead of these bare threads resting on fiberglass, now they're resting on epoxied steel inserts. So all of this needs to be done. If you want to motor up and down the water with this anchor cleated, it needs to be done. Otherwise, it's going to rattle loose. It's a terrible design from the dealer, and I really wish it were addressed so I didn't have to do all this. But yeah, moving forward. So we can talk about some of the hardware in general. You see, I just have my CF numbers taped off for privacy. But so this is what they would typically use to attach an accessory, and these nuts are meant to like bite into material, more specifically like metal, and they used it on a lot of the accessories. And one of the ones they used it on is these Folby rod holders. These come from the dealer, and what I did, I switched them for regular hex nuts with a washer, and then washers on the outside, and then locking nuts. Okay, I don't know why Clackacraft doesn't use locking nuts on everything on this boat. I mean, it's the only way to attach something. I mean, it's going to come loose if you don't. So this, when you tighten it down, it bites into the fiberglass, it scuffs up the fiberglass, and it doesn't even stay tight. So yeah, this is a really bad way to attach something to a boat. The only way is to use an actual bolt. And by the way, don't use Phillips. Phillips is a really poor choice for hardware, and they did. You can see on where the casting brace was and where the footrest is, they use Phillips hardware. I have no idea why they wouldn't choose just hex instead, right? Just Allen bolts. But either way, so this is what I did. Just switched all of them out for regular hex bolts with a washer, and then the washer and the stop nut, or the locking nut. So yeah, that's something that needs to be addressed, and they did that in a lot of areas. So stainless steel hardware with washers and locking nuts, that's what needs to be present on this boat moving forward. So let's talk about the oar retention. So how the oars were set up, I put these are oar rights. Who makes these? Convertible. I forget the brand, but yeah, these oar rights essentially they can flip open so that you can feather your oars, and then you can put this down so that it locks it in this oar lock. It keeps it upright. So I put that on, and that acts as it does two things. One, it actually acts as an oar right and keeps the oar flat with the water, but it also keeps it from falling on its face. And the reason why I did that is because this is what they originally used to secure the oars. And by the way, they used a Phillips bolt with the same washer that they did on the rod holders. So no locking nuts, no nothing. Is really bad design. And this is what they used. And this this little strap is what is supposed to go around that. It sits in that groove, and then it stretches around and is supposed to retain this oar. And the reason why it's a bad design, I'll go over to this side, is because this seat right here, the clearance between the seat and the side of the boat is minimal. So in order to take this oar out, that one really isn't a big concern. Obviously there's no seat to get in the way of it, but this one, the reason why it was hard with this one is because you have to come out with the oar when you use that. And it would make contact with the seat. So you would kind of have to go out and then go up with the oar, and it would spread that rubber block open. And it eventually got loose, and yeah, it's going to get sun-baked. It's just not a good design. And then to put it back, you would have to push down, and it would like fold over the rubber block, and it was just a nightmare. It wasn't a good way to secure it. You can kind of see, should have brought this over here in the first place. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is what it looked like. And in order to put it back, it would have to push down, because you would make contact with the seat when you tried to put it back, right? So it was just a terrible design. This is not a good way to secure these oars. So what I did, I utilized the one hole that was drilled into the boat, and I did so you can see, just a hex bolt with a washer, and then a big washer and a stop nut. And I use these right here. It's just a bungee ball, and I zip tied the bungee ball right here, so that when you take it off, whoops, when you take it off, it stays, right? And then it's a little hard to do one-handed, but it's a better design than what was previously. So when I'm on the water, I just undo this, right? And they hang out like this, and these don't come flying out of the boat. So when I go down the road, when I'm out of the water, I just snap them back in. And yeah, it retains the oars much better. And when this bungee ball goes bad, I have a pack of 25 of these, and that's what I'll replace it with. So replace them like every year, every couple of years, and you're good. Whereas this, I'm sure they charge quite a bit for that, and it's really not a good way to secure the oars. Well, let's talk about the casting brace. So we already mentioned that they used Phillips hardware for the casting brace. You can see there, and once again, I don't know of anyone who'd prefer Phillips over over like just Allen bolts. You can have a bunch of different sizes in a small like little case of Allen wrenches, but these are number 3 Phillips. So yeah, it's just, and they strip out. It's not a good design. But how the casting brace was, there was roughly 4 inches of space between the edge of the seat and the casting brace. So you would have to squeeze in between that gap, and you would trip a lot of the time. And not to mention that this casting brace being, this rower's like foot pedestal is the same color as the floor. So you trip over this a lot. So this should be a different color so that it contrasts and you don't trip over it as easily. What else? We can talk about this lock on the motor really quick. This lever, when it's pulled over, it puts tension on this right here, and it keeps your outboard from moving. Well, even when you tighten down that nut right there, it lasts for maybe 10 minutes down the road before your outboard's swinging free. So what I did, I used the same bungees as I do for my oars, and I put it around this little area. Pulls a little tension on this and it keeps it from spinning. This doesn't come with an hour meter, but I bought one for like, I don't know, $15, and it's super easy to install. Transom bolts. This is how the transom bolts looked from the dealer. Okay. The length was way too short, and they had maybe 2 to 3 threads actually inside the nut. Okay, and of course they didn't use locking nuts. So what I did, I just got longer ones, and I should trim these, but yeah, it's just the little things, man. Attention to detail. I mean, when you spend a lot of money on these boats, and next thing you know, you're having to do little things like this over the weekend, and it's keeping you from going out on your boat. So yeah, I think these are roughly 1 inch longer, and then just put on locking nuts. So that's the only way to attach something to these boats. Otherwise it will go loose. I put these Scotty rod holders on the back of the boat, and that's what I did. I drilled through here, and as you should do, I just did the washers with locking nuts, right? So that's the proper way to install something on this boat. I kind of wish there was a little more of a depth to these side trays, especially if you get the mat to go in here. It takes away from the depth, so there really isn't a whole lot of lip to catch something. But check out these Rapala little tool storage things right here. I'm not sure what it's called specifically, but I just degreased this rower seat, and I put it on with 3M tape, and it's actually magnetic too, so it keeps these pliers and these scissors from rattling around. It's actually a really nice way to secure something to these power drifters without, you know, drilling unnecessary holes or anything like that. Going back to these rod holders, the height of the rod holders from the factory, it's not high enough to clear this oar. So you can't even use these rod holders with these oars in. So you need to buy, like, I think it's a 6 or 8 inch extension in order for it to clear this oar. So they really should give you that from the dealer, so that you don't have to take these oars out to use these rod holders. It's just the little things, right? So that should be included, just the extension. And then the one thing that is kind of unfortunate, I had to fabricate this license plate bracket here. So there really isn't a good spot to put a license plate on this boat. If you do it up here on the fender, not only is it kind of rolled over, but you would have to change your orientation from horizontal to vertical, and you can get pulled over for that. If you do it down here, like a lot of those universal license plate brackets, it's going to be broke in like a week. So this is something that I think Clackacraft should start incorporating. And you can just see I taped over my license plate numbers for just privacy reasons. But I had this made by my cousin. It's just an aluminum frame essentially that we milled out on the bottom right here and then drilled and tapped into the trailer. And this thing is rock solid. I mean, you could stand on it. It does kind of get some rocks and debris in here behind the license plate, but aside from that, this thing is a super strong way to mount a license plate. So yeah, I wish that they would fab something like this up and include this as an option, because it's really nice to have, for one, the option to be legal, right? And have it stay and be there for years to come, and not just break off like the second time you go fishing. So I think I had one last thing I wanted to talk about, was the electrical. So this is the Perco switch. That's how you go on off with your battery. It kills power to the whole thing. I really wish these battery trays were like metal, because I brought the boat home and I found out that this you can see this piece that goes over the top of the battery is plastic. Well, it was cracked when I brought the boat home, so you know, I'm not a big fan of that, but I guess it works. So let's talk about the Ulterra really quick. If you want to get a bow mount trolling motor on this boat, this is what I highly recommend you do. Okay, get one of these. This is the Noco Genius Gen Pro 10X3, and it's a 3-bank battery charger, and it's a smart charger. Here's my AGM battery. Here's a 12-volt lithium and a 12-volt lithium. So my AGM is wired to that bank, and I have two 12 volts wired together. Whether it's parallel or series, I'm not that smart, but yeah, it's wired together. And so I have 24 volts at 100 amp hours powering my Minn Kota. You do not need a 36 volt trolling motor for these boats. This boat is not heavy enough to necessitate the 36 volt. And the option that they offer from the factory, it's a 36 volt battery, but it's only 50 amp hours. So it's an unnecessary extra 12 volts, but you get less duration. So, I mean, I think as it is with the 24 volt Ulterra that I have, it's like 84, an 84 pound thrust trolling motor, which is plenty powerful. I mean, if you aren't paying attention, if you're on like even speed 7, if it's facing directly to the port or starboard, and if you hit the power button, it'll throw you off your feet. It's very powerful. You do not need 36 volts for this. And another reason why, if you get a 36 volt battery, you can't wire it to these because it's dissimilar voltage. So it needs to be a 12 volt AGM, a 12 volt here and a 12 volt there, for a total of 24 volts on these last two banks for your trolling motor. And when you do that, you can plug into one plug and charge all your batteries. That's one thing I wanted. I didn't want to have to plug into one port to charge my cranking battery and then another port to charge my Ulterra. And that's what you'll have to do if you get a 36 volt a 36 volt battery. So yeah, I highly recommend you do this instead. 12 volt AGM for your cranker, and then these two are going to be your 12 volt that are wired together. So you're going to have 24 volts at 100 amp hours on these last two banks, and you get to plug into one thing and charge all of your batteries. So Yeah, aside from that, these boats are really cool. There's just a couple things that I wanted to point out, because I run into a lot of power drifters in my area, and you know, I talked to them and I mentioned all these things, and they're like, hey, actually, I'm having the same issues. I kind of wish all of that were I wish all of that was addressed at the factory as well. So I hope Clackacraft doesn't take it personally when I bring this up, but yeah, it would be really nice in the near future if they started incorporating these things into their builds, and um, you wouldn't have to do all that after you shell out all that money to get these boats. So I really hope they don't take it personally, and I hope to buy a boat again from them in the distant future, because it was a cool experience, and they do make a good product. So yeah, that's all I had.